so you approve this, where I don't. But they're posting that for hundreds, maybe even thousands of children who will see it. And yeah, maybe that's not your intention. Maybe that's not what you're hoping happens. Maybe you're hoping that it brings attention to it and helps this book be banned from other schools. But what you're doing is you're exposing children to these pictures. You're exposing children to nudity.
Let me go over some stats, and this is from March of this year. So Twitter has 440 million monthly active users. 6.6% of those monthly active users are children between the ages of 13 and 17. Now, Libs of TikTok has 2.6 million followers. I would be willing to bet that at least 3% of those, or 60 some thousand, are children. And they literally tweeted out the very video of the event that they claim is so horrible because a child or a few children may have seen it. So like, I just don't understand it. And then they want to claim that I'm this like deviant because after I said that I don't support this, I don't support kids seeing this, and made a post where I actually censored the content so that kids wouldn't see it, they claim that I'm supposed to be this horrible person that wants to groom kids. It just aggravates me. It infuriates me because now I have people calling my house saying things that are just disgusting, and I just needed to create the space to call it out. And I know there's people in here who support Libs of TikTok. I'm fine with that. I think that they post funny content sometimes, informative content every now and then, but they skew things, and it hurts people, and it makes problems out of things that aren't problems, and it redirects attention to things that shouldn't have the attention brought onto them when that attention can be brought onto actual issues that we should be trying to solve. Uh, that's just my thoughts there.
You're saying no to everything else. I don't think the opportunity has even.
Oh, I think you cut out there, Carolyn. But
I just want to say I agree, and I think nudity should be reserved to private entities. You know, like if you want to be part of a nudist colony, it can be on private land.
So
If you
once
want
they,
to,
sorry, Caroline, you cut out there, so you were a little
oh,
foggy. But go ahead.
where did I leave off for you guys?
so I started talking when you cut out. Did you hear
I
me talking?
didn't. I'm sorry.
So it's been a while.
Go back about a minute,
Um,
about 60
I
seconds.
think if we want to talk about hypocrisy, I don't think really the chance has even been given to really point out hypocrisy. Like every time you drill down on a specific thing, you by nature are saying no to everything else. The opportunity would arise to call out hypocrisy after the people who have particular concerns have seen those concerns addressed, and if they are unwilling to address other concerns. I think it's a waste of time and a distraction to spend our time fighting about how we can be the most fair and the least hypocritical before anything has actually gotten done, when it sounds like we all agree that it would be great if public nudity weren't a thing and we didn't have to worry about our kids seeing it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think public nudity should be reserved for private entities. If you want to be part of a nudist colony, I mean, do it on private land. If you want to be riding your bike naked, do it on private property. Do it on, go somewhere where it's barred off, where people can't get in unless they know what they're about to see. I think ultimately, I think most people would probably agree with that. I mean, does anybody really want to see random naked people around?
Yeah,
I mean,
I
the law says in Washington that being publicly nude is not a crime, so they can't hold you criminally liable for it. However, being indecent about it is. So I suppose the key word there is what defines indecent.
yeah,
I
I
would think
wanted to say something
indecent
about
would be like I would think indecent would be like an act, like a more along this a sexual act.
or like
But
dancing
what
around.
Caroline said
Yeah, God.
about the sorry, there's a delay on my phone. I apologize. What Caroline said about the hypocrisy, just because you don't um call out every other ill, I think that's a given. I don't know anyone who takes a position for or against an issue, let's just say against an issue, who then has to validate their position by also taking a position against every other ill in society or perceived ill in society. I think that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I think the point, at least perhaps that was made before I came in, but I don't think that's a valid argument at all. So I agree with you, Caroline, there. But
That's how we ended up having this conversation. So like
well,
Brian and I went back and forth, and I said, if everything is bookended or couched by like a caveat or a but or however, like if you really do think this is disgusting, and I believe that you do, and you want people to understand that you think this is disgusting and inappropriate and shouldn't be the case, it would be appropriate to put a period at the end of that thought and leave it be. And I think that so all I'm not meaning to be like overly critical of Brian or Ed, but I'm just saying this is how the public conversation devolves to a place where people don't take you seriously and don't take you at your word of saying like, I do actually denounce this, I don't support this, I think it's a bad idea, if everything is couched with some sort of caveat or but what about, like it shouldn't require me caring about that thing, shouldn't require me being in an active state of activism against other things that you deem to be in that realm at this
Yeah, no,
time.
I agree. Like, I think whataboutism is probably prevalent a lot on both sides, and we probably should avoid it. For me personally, the reason I posted so much about it was just because libs of TikTok was being disingenuous. They were spreading information about me that I didn't actually say. I said the exact opposite, in fact. They're acting like I was supporting this when I absolutely was not supporting it. I said so in the tweet above it within the thread, which they almost certainly read. So it was just the fact that they were taking information that I said, skewing it, and then presenting it in the total opposite of what I said in order to like sow this narrative. And now my name is trending on Twitter because of it. You know, like like I didn't even say it, and I'm a Twitter trend. It's just a little bit, I guess, insincere. I'd say it's well, much worse than
I,
that though.
I would
Let's
agree
go.
with that 100%. And like, I'm a Lips of TikTok fan, but she shouldn't have done that. And that goes against the general principle that I was saying earlier of like, well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure how you guys would like identify yourselves. But I think like that murky water of, are you an activist or are you just a person popping off on Twitter? I don't tend to go after individuals as much as I can help it. But I think you guys are figures who like the waters are kind of muddy. Like, are you just people or are you activists? And I
Yeah, like
think
I think aren't we all activists though? Like in that we all have ideologies that we portray on Twitter, and we want others to believe in those ideologies. I think there's a fine line between being an activist and not being an activist. Brian and I, we aren't paid to do any activism, but we do have our ideologies, and we like to get those we like to provide our opinions on why we believe in certain things. So, I mean, if that makes us an activist, then I guess we're activists.
I mean, I think the difference between someone sharing their opinion and what they believe versus an activist is somebody who wants to change hearts, minds, or votes, right? And so for me, I personally don't want to change anything about anybody else. I just want to share what I believe, put it out there, and I could care less what anybody else does. But if you're in an effort to change hearts, minds, and votes, then I think that that's more classified as activism, for
Yeah,
good or for worse.
yeah, I agree. So I invited some more people up. I'm trying to get some people that are probably,
Let's get to America's Lawyer because he's been
and
here.
then
He's
Tom.
a subscriber. Yeah, then Tom. America's Lawyer. I mean, America's Plumber. I'm sorry.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing?
Good, good. How
Good,
are
good.
you?
You know, it's funny. I when I first found you guys after the new algorithms, I would have never seen your posts at all with the echo chamber that I surrounded myself in back then. And what drew me into you guys was, believe it or not, I've my entire life I've always taken up the side of the underdog. And when I saw how, I don't even remember what the topic was, I just saw people lambasting you like they did with this topic. And it took me all of 5 seconds to realize that there was no merit to what they were saying. And which brings us into last night when they were skewering you by ignoring the very first sentence, which, if you noticed, I did screenshot it and put it up, and then I got torched for doing it. But getting back to the topic as a whole, can you guys hear me, or did I lose you?
Nope, you're good.
Okay.
No, yeah, we hear you loud and
The
clear.
It hasn't happened like overnight, but there has been a tendency, in my opinion, and of course this is age relevant. I'm not talking about young children, but somewhere along the way, nudity became sexualized. And there were some good talking points earlier when they were talking about activism groups, and maybe that is what incenses people, maybe on both sides, left and right, but maybe the sexualization of the nudity, and then you couple that with exposure to children, and that's just a bridge too far. I mean, I have lots of friends that are and family members that are gay and or lesbian, and I've been to pride parades in years past, and there is a difference. And of course, only the ones that are to the extreme are going to make the news. So that's all we see here is the extreme ones. But there are hundreds and thousands of pride parades across the country, and very few of those encounters. I would assume very few of those encounters where there's, children there. And then the other side of me says, well, okay, somebody had said, in certain areas, they know what to expect from these parades, yet the adults are choosing to bring their children. So who am I to get mad at the people in the parade versus the people that drag their kids to the parade? So that's just what I wanted to say. I hope I made sense, but that was my 2 cents. I wanted.
And it's true because I live in LA and in West Hollywood. Okay, I'm just going to say it. The stuff that I have seen on this platform is reflective of what really happens. And if any parent takes their kids to that kind of stuff, knowing that, I mean, people are standing up top like dancing, and they're like basically have a thong on. If you do that, and unless you just landed in LA, like you know that about this city, about what happens on certain days in a certain month, and if you take your kids there, it's like, what are you doing? So there's something to be said about this, that the point that this gentleman just brought up, that I think is very important here as well, because when these pictures are broadcast, right, do I want to see this? No. But do I go to them? No. I stay away from West Hollywood on those days. I don't enjoy it. I don't think. But anyone who takes their kids to that is, I think that's child abuse, to be honest. That's just me.
And
I think you also brought up a good point in saying that nudity has become sexualized. And if we go back 20 years or 40 years, or I don't know, however long, probably when I was a kid, nudity wasn't viewed as being like super sexual like it is now. And I think I think if this was to happen back then, I don't think there would be so much outrage. But times do change, and I think
Here's an example. Like in the 60s, there were several schools in the United States where if you had swim class, you did it naked. And this was in the 50s and 60s. And it wasn't every school, but it was definitely something that many schools did do. And I'm not saying I support this in any way, but there were kids naked and there were adult teachers in there watching them swim, and there was never any major outcry about it. So I think society changes, things change, people have different ideas about what should or should not be moral, I guess you could say, but it's definitely something that is fluid.
well, I think pedophilia has gotten a lot more attention, and I think people are like, you hear stories from the past where people were afraid to come out and say they were molested by a great uncle or an uncle or something, but now it's more like people don't feel ashamed to do that, and I think
Well,
that's a good thing. And I think
I think you
as
can't
time
speak
goes,
broadly. I think there's definitely many
oh
people
yeah.
that are still afraid to come out, but
No, but I feel like just like people come out as being gay, and that people feel more comfortable about that today than they did in the decades past. I think people also feel more comfortable come out about rape, and people feel more comfortable come out about being molested. That doesn't mean everybody feels comfortable, but I think over time there's been less barriers to do that, less barriers blocking people from doing that. And I think nudity in general, I think people want to want kids to see less nudity because they feel like that's kind of part of the problem. And I think it's rightful that we're moving in this direction, but things definitely have
yeah,
changed.
so I want to try and get some people up who maybe attacked us or maybe called us names and DM'd us threats. So if you are one of those people, raise your hand. I want to actually talk to you because it's funny that so many people attack us in DMs or in tweets, but when we have a space, nobody's willing to actually speak up and challenge our position or call us names. So I actually want that so that we can kind of push back on the false narratives out there. But Tom, I'd like to get to you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're good.
Cool, thank you. So yeah, I never called any names necessarily, or I definitely never DM'd, and I never made any
I was
threats.
hoping you
So
were one of them.
That's clear. Say again.
I was hoping you were one of them.
No, I have tweeted at you, I've jumped at you and responded, and I've been in your replies, but I try to keep it above board because I come at this with an effort to be in good faith. I can't imagine why you would want to go back and forth on defending certain activity that these adults are, behaving. The adults are dancing naked in front of kids in a pond in New York. You've got, or rather, a fountain in New York City. You've got a guy on a bike, and it's not one, but it's like probably a dozen bicyclists, some sitting, some standing, all swinging, weighing in front of kids. And you had said that this isn't a problem because their dads probably are nude in front of them, or their brothers, which is an absurd claim. So
But
number one, that
wait.
can't be
I
your
didn't
first.
actually say that though, Tom. I didn't say that. I said that it is I said specifically that I don't support bringing kids to these events and that kids shouldn't be attending these events. Uh,
But Brian, if you don't think that it is damaging in any sort of way, why is it that you think that children shouldn't be there?
well,
I
so
think
so
that's the confusing part because it seems to be playing both
if
sides of the coin.
it's actually not. So what I said is I don't think kids should be there. I don't think parents should take their kids there. It's their right if it's legal to do that. I don't agree with it. What I did say is that I don't think it's causing much damage to a child if they saw a man on a bike naked. I don't think.
But don't you
But
understand? Do you
let me
understand the
finish. Let
difference?
me answer that question really fast. So the disconnect is that even though I don't think that, I still wouldn't promote people doing that, having kids see that. If I walked out of my front door and I saw a man naked in the street in front of my house, I wouldn't want to see that. So I wouldn't want my kids to see that. I don't think kids should have to see that. Do I think that it has a long-term impact on them? I don't think so, at least not to the extent that much worse things that are seen online that people can stumble upon by doing a Google search in a few seconds. Go ahead, Tom.
So that is the kind of the point that I wanted to get to is that you're trying to equate this to some other thing being worse. You're trying to say that while this is bad and you wouldn't necessarily condone it, you won't condemn it
I did
because
condemn it though. I
hardcore
condemned it
pornography
several
exists
times.
on the internet. I'm not done.
Tom. No,
Just because
hold on.
just because porn. No.
Tom, let me
You wanted
finish.
to give me a
Let me
minute. Let
cut
me at
in
least
here.
have the minute.
Tom, let me cut in. I did condemn it. I condemned it probably 35 times. Even before Libs of TikTok even brought this up, I condemned it several times. I said that I wouldn't do it. I said that parents shouldn't be bringing their kids to these events. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you're trying to say that while this is bad and you don't condone it, you wouldn't necessarily do it. You don't think it's going to have a lasting impact, and then you try to argue that there are far worse things on the internet that kids
There
could find.
is. There
Therefore,
is.
this isn't that bad.
There's far worse things on the internet that kids can find. I stand behind that. There's people getting their heads chopped off. There's people getting shot and murdered in disgusting ways. That is much more damaging than seeing a naked man on a bike. If you disagree, that's your right, but I don't think most people disagree with that.
Brian,
One
can
is
you
not
not see how
an
this
excuse for the other.
distracts?
Absolutely not. And that's why I clearly stated I do not support it. I just brought it up as a point. It had nothing to do with minimizing the impact of anything. It was just a point that there's so many worse things on the internet. Nobody's speaking out against this, but they are speaking out against the guy on the bike that somebody shared a video of to millions of people.
But
That
Brian, I feel like
no
you
evidence that
can't.
kids saw. Go ahead, Caroline.
I feel like you're kind of wanting to have your cake and eat it too. Like people are wanting to hear you say in strong terms where there's no muddy waters that you think this is awful and you
It
don't
is awful. I
support it.
said it though.
I understand that, but you're wanting to make additional points about all of these other things, and
So
that is going
Caroline,
to muddy the waters
I
because
think I can, Caroline. So Brian thinks it's awful that kids could see a naked man riding a bike down the street. At the same time, he has not seen anything that shows that this is damaging to kids in the long run. In
but
Then
there,
why
fact,
does he think it's
I
awful?
have a question about that specifically.
because he doesn't think it, he doesn't think it's right. Like this, that's like saying, why do you think it's awful that kids can see violent movies if there's no studies that violent movies lead to violence or play violent video games? Where there are actually studies that show that, but what if there weren't?
So I
So
guess
Do
all
you
my
there's a
point
think
was
lot of
going
that
to
it?
people.
come back to
Do you,
my whole point, the overarching point, and then I'll be quiet forever, is just that if there is such this back and forth as to whether or not Brian and Ed, we'll stick to Brian, because that's who I was referring to before. If there's any question as to where you stand on child abuse and child sexual exploitation, then you should just simply say, I, Brian Krasenstein, condemn the parents who bring children to pride events and condemn people who perform sexually in front of children.
I don't
Period. And then just
condemn
say
I
I've
that and
don't
said
hit
that
the
condemn
several
post.
times
children
today,
being brought to
though.
pride events, that there's no sexuality, no nudity. I do condemn
This
parents
wasn't a pride
bringing.
event.
Let me finish like this. I have said several times before Libs of TikTok even made that tweet skewing my words that I would never bring my child to a nude event. I would never approve of a child being brought to a nude event. You go back in my tweets from last night, you'll see all of that. I never said otherwise. Libs of TikTok took my one reply to somebody out of context and then claimed that I approve it or I'm defending it. I'm not defending it. I will say that without a doubt right now. I do not defend naked men riding bikes in front of children. Okay?
So let me
Can
say
you
something.
see? Can you see how your
Tom,
tweet
let
would
me
have
say
been
something real
perceived
fast.
that way?
Tom,
It
so
would have been
this
perceived
weekend,
that.
Tom, 1 second. So this weekend I was in San Francisco with my kids and it was Pride Week. We walked down the street. We went to some public events there. There's no nudity. They're perfectly fine Pride events. So to label Pride events as being inappropriate for children, I think is not the same as labeling nudity to be inappropriate for children.
I would like to say something though, because this is for me really important. So, Brian, when I read the tweet, the first thing that came to my mind was, um, I have never seen a man, as a kid, I had never seen my dad naked. And if I had seen a man naked, I would have been traumatized. However, what I have a problem with is I don't think many people here understand. Not all of us hide behind cartoon pictures. Okay, some of us, our names, our LinkedIn's, our everything is out there. So what people don't understand is if you have a problem with an issue or a tweet, say that. Debate that. Say somebody is. I've said this on these in their spaces in these spaces before. Say they're an idiot if you want. Say they're stupid. Say their argument is stupid. But when you quote tweet and do all of this stuff and accuse people of being pedophiles because of one statement, right? And somebody has kids. I've received death threats, not because of anything related to this kind of stuff, but because of people think that because of some things related to international stuff, like, but people need to realize we have a responsibility on this platform. Not all of us, again, I'll end with this, hide behind cartoon pics and fake names. Okay, some of us are actually out there, so please have some responsibility in what you post. That's all I think is
Yeah.
kind of reasonable to
Yeah,
ask.
I agree. And if anybody has kids, I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. If anybody has kids, it's very likely that at some point in their young life, they're gonna see you naked. It just happens when you live in a house with somebody. I'm not like running around naked in front of my kids, but if I'm in the shower and my kids start screaming as if they're injured, I'm gonna dash out of the shower as quickly as I can to make sure they're okay, whether I'm naked or not. So like people act like I'm like some disgusting person because I said that kids see their parents naked. Like what kid doesn't see their parents naked at some point?
Well, also, I mean, while I'm a total prude myself, and I luckily, because I'm a prude, haven't seen my parents naked, I have friends who grew up in households where nudity is a thing, and they feel very comfortable with it. They don't have an issue with it. There's cultures where that's like totally normal. In France, there's certain beaches where nudity is fine. I have my own ways of, like I said, I'm kind of a prude, but I went to Japan and they have onsens and nudity there. That's like a completely normal thing. Now they have, in some cases, it's separate between men and women. In some cases, it's not. And the way they look at human bodies, it's just not sexualized at all, right? But people just, you take these long, I mean, I actually did it, which was like one of the most uncomfortable, terrifying things for me, but you kind of get over it. And it is kind of empowering when you get over it. But like people just, you kind of take you basically clean yourself in front of everyone, and then you go in these public onsens, and it is a very different cultural thing. And so, it's one thing when people sort of flaunt, sexual things, right? Or, pedophilia. Obviously, I think every single person in this room, I would hope, would agree how horrible that is. But it is another thing to kind of put in, our own kind of morality or prudence, which, like, as I admitted, I have that. And versus like, is it damaging, which I think was Brian's point. Like, he might have an ick factor about it, I might have an ick factor about it, but it doesn't mean that it's damaging. Different people view these things in really different ways, and parents can choose to treat that differently with their kids. Like my former best friend, she grew up, like I said, in a household where nudity was really normal and common, and actually she has no issue with it, and she has a very different attitude than me to it.
Yeah, Kat, there's actually a lot of debate on this. So there's actually academic studies that show that children who see their parents naked actually develop a better self-confidence, better body confidence later in life. So I think, there's no study that says children who see nudity are going to end up having issues later in life, or going to end up being pedophiles themselves, or whatever the issue is. I I do think it's disgusting for a complete stranger to just walk around naked in front of children. I think it's just not right,
Well,
right?
but because it's taking away your choice and agency, and that is the problem. That's to me the
Exactly.
abuse,
I think
right?
it also is worth pointing out, just to throw this in there, that children who are sexualized and abused at earlier ages are also those most likely to repeat offenses as
Absolutely.
adults.
Absolutely, but is seeing somebody naked abuse? I don't know.
I
If
wouldn't
it, well,
say
yeah,
that. I wouldn't
flashing
say
someone
that
is a
it.
crime. Flashing
Well,
you is a
yeah,
crime.
yeah,
I can
but
run up to you
what
in the
I'm
90s with a
what I'm
trench coat and
saying,
flash you.
yeah, and absolutely that shouldn't
But
happen, right? That
by
shouldn't
the way,
happen, but
flashing is a crime because it is intentional exposure of one's nude body for the gratification of that person.
Which is
So
what
there,
we see in these parades all the day long.
yeah, but in the parade, they're not. Most of these people in the parades are not naked because they're hoping children see them naked, right?
That's literally why they're there.
No, are you serious, Tom? You think these people are at the parades hoping that children see them naked?
If they were hoping children wouldn't see them naked, they wouldn't be there naked in front of kids.
Okay, Tom. So but that's not their. So their
they
intention
are
is to
not
be naked.
inviting kids to come to those parades. It's the parents who bring those kids to the
Yeah,
parade.
you gotta acknowledge that, Tom. I
So as
mean,
soon as if you're a nude adult and you see a bunch of kids, do you not just run away in shame of your nude body being in front of a bunch of kids that shouldn't be there?
Personally, I would, but I wouldn't be naked in front of other people anyway.
So
So
again, then you
right,
can just
exactly.
condemn
Yeah.
all these people's behavior. Like, it's that simple. You shouldn't be
yeah,
defending them. You should
the,
just
the,
condemn
We're
them
no,
all.
talking about how
the
people
motive
behave in
that
crowds in mass. It's different than one person, perhaps one person, but when you have a parade of over 1,000 people, 2,000 people, right? You can't. That's not how it works. That's not how people work in masses. It's just not how it works.
I
Not
think
everybody's going to
police have a
see that
responsibility
child
to
at the
pull the
same
nude
time.
people out of
Not
the
everybody's going to
parade.
know that that child has seen them. I mean, it just does. It's just not a logical conclusion, to be honest.
Tom, you say police have a responsibility, but what if it's not illegal?
Like the parade in the video. Like the parade in the video wasn't actually a gay pride parade in Seattle. It was called the Fremont Solstice Parade, and it happens every year. And it's the people paint their bodies and ride around on bikes, and most of them are naked. Not all of them. Most of them are naked. There's men, there's women, straight people, gay people. It's an everyday thing, every year thing, an annual thing. And in Seattle, in Washington, being nude on the streets is actually legal. So the police should not be arresting them. And if you want police to arrest them, then you have to vote for change.
Ed and Brian, I have a question to the topic of like seeing naked strangers being damaging to kids. I think y'all probably are coming at that from a psychological standpoint. I don't have studies to back this, but it would seem pretty common sense to me. I would imagine that children who have seen a normalization of naked strangers around them would probably have an increased likelihood of
We don't have to guess. We don't have to guess. It's called
of being
desensitization.
yes, of being abused. You desensitize a child to seeing somebody who they don't even know naked, and that is a problem. I'm not really concerned about my child, being mentally scarred from seeing a woman's breasts or a man with his dick flopping around. Like, I'm really not concerned about that from like a psychological standpoint, but you're desensitizing children to, we can compare our society to France or whatever, but we don't live in France. Like, we have grown up with a society and a culture that has a specific set of ideals. And that has formed the way that we think about other people, the way that we interact with other people. That just, I don't see how that isn't part of the conversation for people. And that is why you have people on the right saying this is grooming children. It is not normal in our society to see naked strangers around you. And if you bring little kids into that kind of environment where they think that that is normal, that is a
Well,
problem. You
yeah.
are
Well, you
So
putting
know,
a
Caroline, I
target on
wonder
your child's
why.
go
back.
ahead.
Here's what I wonder when I hear these conversations. And because the grooming of children, it doesn't happen just with gay people or trans people. Grooming of children happens on so many levels, and a lot of it happens because children don't recognize when adults take advantage of them. And for some reason, there's just this kind of idea that the threat is only coming from this one place. And I do worry about that because it dismisses like all these other threats, because a lot of the molestations and abuse, it comes from really figures that are just really, that people, the kids trusted figures in the kids' lives. They're not usually strangers. Well, sometimes they are, but usually they're people who are close to those kids' lives. They're family members, neighbors, trusted figures, and it gets buried in these conversations because there's this huge hysteria and concern. And look, I get there's some validity to maybe like there's some validity to some of these, but at the same time, like I see it only going in this one direction
Yeah, no,
lately.
I
You only
agree. And
see it.
so my comment that I don't think it's a kid seeing a naked man on a bike at a parade with their parents is going to have much impact on them long term, right? So that comment,
But it will.
Libs of TikTok took that and skewed that to say Brian Krasenstein defends adult men riding around naked and flashing their dicks to kids. Yikes.
Brian, that is a
No,
defense. If I
no,
say that that is a 10 out of 10
but
evil
you're
and you say no, it's
it
only
is
7 out
not
of
a
10, that's
defense of
defending
the
it.
action. I literally said in the tweet above it that I do not defend or condone children going to these parades and seeing naked adults. I literally said the exact opposite. What my tweet said is, although I don't defend it, I don't think there's going to be much harm to the kid if they're at a parade with their parents and see a man naked on a bike. I still don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong, but that doesn't mean I condone it. I do
And
not
look,
condone
so
it.
academic studies have not shown that it is damaging to a
That was
kid.
the point of
So,
my tweet.
so I
And
mean,
for people,
if you can show a
and for
study
people
that
to,
Tom, if you have a study that shows otherwise, feel free to post it up top.
I'll
But
have to find a study that shows you desensitization of children is bad for them. But yeah,
no,
I
no,
can probably
show a
find one.
study that shows a child seeing a naked person on a bike or seeing a naked person in general.
Yes, desensitization of a child sexually. I'll find you a study
Tom,
that shows
Tom,
you that's wrong. I can't believe you'd have to
Tom,
ask me
can I
that, but I'll
ask you a
find one.
question? Do you support posting videos to 2.6 million followers of naked men on bikes in a parade when thousands of children follow you? Would you support that?
I don't support providing children with sexualized material at all.
So then,
So
then,
Period.
then you
you
agree
don't
that what
defend
Libs
libs
of
of TikTok,
TikTok
right?
did
So
is
you
a million times worse than me making this statement.
I don't think what Libs of TikTok has done is breaking any law
It
or
isn't. It
sexualizing
isn't.
any child,
But
like the
neither was
people
the
in the parade
parade.
did.
Or Brian's post.
Or my post, which was
Yeah,
merely an
Did Brian
opinion that the
sexualize
kids aren't
children?
impacted, when I
Well,
literally said,
this is the other tweet that you didn't actually respond to. I said you're equating complaining about the sexualization of children and highlighting the absurdity of it to promoting it itself, which is absurd.
Tom, but it's not promotion. Tom, are you okay with libs of TikTok posting the video of naked people on bike for thousands, maybe tens of thousands of children to see on Twitter?
Posting
Let me finish. Is that harming children in any way?
libs of TikTok reposting what other people have done is not herself harming anyone. No.
So if I was at the event and I said, if I had a VR headset and I could show my children what I saw at the event, would that be harming my child?
I guess we're getting into a gray area, which I don't know what your intent is,
No,
and that's why
by
you'd be
intent,
intentionally
Tom.
showing a child.
That is
Well,
not
Ed, let
even
me
like
finish at least a
close to the
sentence.
same
Wait, wait,
thing,
wait.
Ed. That's
No,
ridiculous, and
no,
you
no.
know it.
Wait a second.
Caroline,
Wait a second.
Are we going by
It's a
hand,
silly
Ed?
comparison because what you'd be
If libs of TikTok is posting a video of what they're condemning, and they're condemning this act because kids might see it, but they're posting it for where kids are definitely going to see it, is that not contributing to the problem more than what Brian said? Am I right or wrong? Like I
This
don't
is
see what.
literally going back to what I said in the very beginning.
yeah, but
This is an
just
issue of law and Twitter policy. I'm not yelling about the men on bikes or saying that they're going there to expose themselves to children. I'm not saying that. Like, I've never been saying that. I have an issue with the fact that it is allowed to happen. That is a law issue.
Yeah, so
If
my issue is with Tom having an issue with Brian's tweet, but not having an issue with the tweet that actually showed this to children. Like,
The
yeah, no,
issue
I
doesn't
think
have
I
to
respond
do
to
with
that.
the exposure to children. The issue has to do with how much this is challenged.
but
You're
my
talking.
my issue is with libs of TikTok posting this tweet that shows what's taking place at this parade to children.
I think
It's
that's
a separate issue.
disingenuous.
Yeah, I think there's two different issues here. Caroline's issues with the law, which I think is fair issue, but Tom's issue is and Brian's issues with the tweet, which is totally different.
yeah, no, so here, this is something I will say unequivocally. I do not support children being brought to parades with naked people. I also do not support sharing uncensored naked videos on Twitter when you have hundreds, probably thousands of kids following you and a reach of 2.6 million. Can everybody
So
else
can
agree
we?
to that?
I have a follow-up question
How
to
many
that though.
children are on TikTok as opposed to
It's
Yeah, you don't
Twitter?
control who follows you on
It's
Twitter.
no, hold
Does
on, hold
that?
on. Here are the stats. There are 30 million kids between the age of 13 and 17 active on Twitter every month.
Are you willing to go to Elon and say that he should ban porn from Twitter on
100%.
that basis?
Or
I
Biden.
said it.
I
I
don't
would
think
love porn to be banned on this platform.
I'm okay with porn not being banned on Twitter, but I think there needs to be high security to ensure that children can't access it.
Okay,
Why
so
would you not?
children
Why would
can't
you
be
be okay with
exposed.
it not being banned? Unless maybe you take a slightly different approach than
Well,
Brian
free
does.
speech. Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
well,
Children,
what
if
about
you're
free
gonna
as an
have
speech
free
adult,
for
you
speech,
can't
what
expose
about free
children
speech
to
for libs
porn.
of TikTok to report on
They
this?
can,
Tom,
but at the same time, they are calling it out and they're doing things that are 100 times worse. Thousands of kids are
Her
seeing it.
target audience is not children.
It is. How can you say
It
that?
is
So,
not.
so, so
It is
you think
parents.
you think that nobody follows Libs of TikTok that's a child? They have 2.6 million people,
wait, stop,
Well,
and
stop,
but it's
stop.
not
Wait,
6%
wait,
of
wait, wait, wait. I want to say something. So yes, libs of TikTok's targeted audience is not children. You're correct, Caroline. But neither is these people riding bikes naked. The target audience isn't children, but children are going to see it, just like children are going to see libs of TikTok's tweets. Yeah. So,
Which is why I say that's a matter of
oh,
policy.
I agree.
I'm not coming after the men on the bikes, just like I'm not coming after libs of TikTok. I am consistent in that.
I'm
That is a matter of
100% with you.
law
I
and
think
Twitter
laws and
policy.
yes, laws and Twitter policy. I'm 100% on that. I do disagree that Twitter should ban all nudity. I think it just needs to be behind some sort of security that ensures children don't have access to it. And
So
I know that some children are going to get access to it through me. access to nudity elsewhere. But I feel like if Elon wants to have a free speech platform, banning nudity is going to kind of go against that.
I can
He
see that.
doesn't have
I
a
can
free
see that.
speech platform though, so
Yeah, that's the point.
Yes.
Could
so
it
I'm
could it be
pro banning.
recommended then that we ask Elon to have 18 and up be what you can access for Twitter, because people are posting porn on Twitter and that's available to minors, as the Krasensteins have said. Should they not be first and foremost promoting that only 18 and up can use Twitter?
I'm okay with that. I'd be perfectly fine with that.
We should hammer down on that. Like that would be great. Then we don't have to worry about what
I
we
would be okay with
Yeah.
that as well,
Yeah,
Hama.
I would love to get a list of things that we agree on at the end of this space
Well, I
that
will
we can
say
all
I
promote.
don't agree on this because I don't want to be exposed to this porn because I should have the right not to be exposed to this particular form of free speech if I should choose not to
I
be.
think that should be in your settings too, that you should be able to opt out of not safe for work content or adult content at
Well, you
large.
It
But
just
do,
makes
right?
a way through anyways, and it's like look, I have nothing against porn, by the way. It's like it can exist, it should exist. I personally, it's just I don't want to be exposed to it on Twitter. Like, look, if I really wanted porn, I can go, there's places you can go to, but this is not what I expect from Twitter, and I don't want to be encountered. And worst of all, they post it on every thread I start, right? Oh, not every thread, but constantly I get these posts like, hey, how are you feeling tonight? And like with pictures that sometimes are blocked and sometimes they're not. And so that's what's
yeah,
frustrating
that's
me.
gross. That's awful.
It's
And
As
it's
a
like
fellow
Twitter
prude,
super
does
I just
respond
so
to
as a
Twitter
fellow
does
anything.
have a
prude, if I
way
could
to
just say
block
that
sensitive. So Twitter does have a way to block sensitive content. I don't think it works very well though, and that's why I say I think Twitter
exactly. That's what I
needs
was gonna
better
say. It
security.
doesn't work that
Well,
well.
wouldn't a solution be that you're required to label any sensitive content when you're making it, so that you aren't relying on algorithms and people reporting it as sensitive content? For instance,
I
But
think
Brian,
they have that, but it's like
no,
not, I don't think it works all the time. But also, they shouldn't be posting, which I think is against the rules. They just don't have very robust reporting. And so I think it's a lot of it is technical issues, to be honest. I think it's more that than anything. But also, I don't really get why Twitter, which is really a speech platform, really needs to have this like extra porn side, which is really not the intention of it's. I would argue it's not really free speech. It's not speech. I guess it's a form of self-expression, but I don't
I
know.
was at the gym in between sets, just browsing my Twitter stream, and this horrible video popped up, and I was like literally looking around to like make sure like nobody saw it on my phone. So yeah, like it does suck when it just like pops up, or like if I'm sitting on the couch and my kids around and something pops up, like you don't want that. And I don't follow. Well, I don't think I follow anybody that's supposedly posting that, although I do follow a lot of people. I'm sure I actually do.
Well, when I was a young person, a kid, a teenager, all those pop-ups would come up with porn too. Like it's gotten better in that regard with the internet because I think there's a lot more tools to manage that. But I remember being exposed to so much of this stuff, way worse than that guy on the bike, I assure you. And I think that stuff did kind of have some effect. Like it actually makes me look at sex in a kind of a bad, it made me look at it in kind of a dirty bad way in some ways because the stuff that I was exposed to was just kind of really gross. And but again, it's kind of, if you go looking for it, fine. Like I've it's people's personal choices. I'm very, very liberal in that end. But like in terms of people should be able to also not see it when they don't want to, and that's the key. And I think we are kind of robbed of those freedoms sometimes.
I just want to apply that logic to the miners at the parade, and then to thank you all for the time. I got to jump. I got an appointment here, but thank you all, Brian and Ed. Appreciate you both. See you later.
Nice having you, Tom. Miss G, I want to get to you. I know you've had your hand raised for quite some time.
I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. I come at both of you. Not very hard, but I say my piece. You laugh, Brian. I do appreciate you both, though, and that's why, I'll still interact. Being from New York City and being aware of what pride parades were like. Now, I'll age myself. I'm 57. I have been in the club culture in New York City since a very, very young age, 15. Um, I can tell you it was never at this level. Now, we want to talk about, what children should see and what they shouldn't see. First of all, I can't blame anyone but the parent. And where that comes in is um, with social media and these parades. You know, this being allowed in New York City, because let's face it, it's one of the most progressive cities there is in the country. That's the problem within itself, okay? Because we're concentrating on just children, whereas it's beyond imaginable for it to be seen by a child. But it's the degradation of society as a whole. It's becoming normalized, and that's where it keeps going further. Now parents think it's okay, let me bring my kids to this and whatever, and we are living in a moralist society as a whole. Now, with that being said, I do not believe that sharing it on social media, libs of TikTok, is doing anything wrong. I personally am going to try and have been trying not to share these things, but you know what? It's out there. Kids are seeing it, and more kids are on TikTok than they are on Twitter. Kids are seeing this regardless. It's not acceptable. And that's why I quote tweeted someone's tweet. I don't know which one of you today, but I did quote tweet you because I think you're being disingenuous when you compare, a nude beach to a parade. Because I could be in Manhattan with my child, not attending the parade, but they're all over.
But hey, hey,
They are
hey,
all over during Pride
let
Month.
me cut in really fast because correct me if I'm wrong, but New York City actually allows women to walk around topless. It's not illegal, if I'm correct. Now, if I brought my kid to New York City on vacation and a woman is walking around naked or topless, is that, am I a bad parent? Like, is that a problem? Like, how do you
Okay,
view
I
that?
see what you're doing here, and this is part of the stuff that I call disingenuous. Because on the norm, without Pride Month, it might be allowed because this is a progressive hellhole and they are totally ruining this city. I am a lifelong born and bred New Yorker, okay? We are going down the shitter like you can't believe. It's unimaginable what I see now. I rode the subways back in the 80s into the 90s when it was really dangerous. And I can tell you, and that's all over, all five boroughs, it is worse now. Okay. So you may come across somebody that might be topless in New York. May. During Pride Month, it is a shit show.
So just to clarify,
So the
hey,
odds of you
hey,
running into
just to
one
clarify,
on vacation
Miss
is
G, hold on a
very.
second. The just to clarify, the actual parade in Seattle was not a pride parade. It was the Fremont Solstice, which is a bike parade that everybody participates in, gay, straight, man, woman. The video clip made it look like it was a pride parade. It was not. Go ahead.
Okay. Regardless, I don't care what kind of parade it is. Public nudity should not be a thing. And Seattle's just another shit show out there in our country. Okay, let's call it like it is. Let's not tiptoe around it. I don't mince my words. I think you know this because you both follow me. Okay, what goes on? You can blame the progressives pushing this in the cities in certain states, and my total state is a progressive hellhole, but you will find this in progressive cities. Now, what I will tell you is
You also find
you
it
want to
in
say, well, if
Florida,
I'm
though.
on vacation, I could tell you, come down here in October or September and see if you find a woman walking around topless on 42nd Street. I'm going to tell you, in the busiest area on 42nd Street, I hardly doubt you
Well,
will. But during the month of
who
June,
walks around
they
without
all think
clothes?
it's
Wait,
okay
wait,
to
wait,
whip
wait. Who
shit
walks
out.
around without clothes in the middle of winter in New York City? I don't think anybody does.
September, I said September. I said come
Still a
down
little
in
chilly.
September, October. September is not chilly, honey. Come visit us.
I grew up right outside of New York. But yeah.
Okay, it is not chilly in September in New York. If you'd like, I'll go pull that up for you. I mean, this is
Okay,
ridiculous.
I
Come
don't want
on,
to stray too
Brian.
far from the topic. The point is that the whole purpose of this space was because libs of TikTok.
You got butthurt. You got called
No,
out.
I got called out for what? What exactly did I get called out for?
You got called out for your position and your wording.
Which was
So
what?
either
Which was
I
what?
recommend you kind of reframe your wording on how you think or what you
What
feel.
was it that
But
I
honestly,
said that you disagree with?
well, from what I seen was when you tried to pose, oh well, the beaches in Florida, and oh, but they're,
I didn't
you
post that.
know,
Ed posted that.
okay.
That was me, and it was just so. My opinion is that people get outraged over this when it's when individuals are involved that they don't like. So beaches in Florida, there are plenty of beaches in Florida where nudity is allowed, and there's children at those beaches in Florida, but there's not outrage about parents bringing their children to nude beaches. We don't see that.
No,
And
there's private sections on said beaches. Am I wrong?
there's there's beaches in Florida that have nudity. South
Public
Beach
beaches.
has topless women. You go to South Beach, you're going to see topless women. There's children running around on those beaches in Florida, on those South Beach beaches.
Okay. And parents are bringing their children there, right?
Yes, there's plenty of kids on South Beach if you ever go.
Okay. And that goes back to what I said. This is a degradation of society. So if we're normalizing this behavior, people are just going to go with the flow. Children don't belong in that
Well,
environment.
you say it's a degradation of society, but this has been going on for decades and decades.
Not to the extent it is
The
now.
parade in question,
Come on.
the parade in
Oh, you're
question.
killing me,
Hold on.
boys.
The parade in question has been taking place for, I think it was 34 years now. The exact parade every year for 34 years. The same type of parade happens in Philadelphia. It's been going on for decades as well.
The one you're speaking of in Seattle?
The one in Seattle has been taking place since, I think, 1989.
Okay.
Have
And
they
how often
always
do they
been
ride
biking
around
naked?
nude on bicycles?
I'm sorry, what was that? What was that? I didn't catch that.
How long have they been running around in these
34
parades
years.
on bike?
34 years.
All 34
Yes,
years.
34 years.
And no one seems to have a problem with it.
They haven't until this year, as far as I'm sure people have in the past, but not to this
Well,
extent.
you see, that's the point. There is a problem with it. Why is it now? Because it's on social media being pointed out as a problem? Because obviously people have a problem with it. It's just now with social media, you're starting to see how much people have a problem with this. And you have a right to say, no, this is not okay. Because, with all due respect, my kids are raised. I am past this. I've done my job. You guys, one of you have younger children. I feel for you. And I'm sorry, I feel for your kids because what the world and what we're coming towards, it's not a pretty place. And I really don't think and I would hope you're not the type of people, and believe me, I don't judge. Listen, love is, they wanted their rights, they should be married. I agree. You're talking to a former liberal here. But what goes on right now and what's been happening is not okay for society as a whole.
Yeah, no,
We have
I think
become
you have the right to that opinion, but what I'm saying is that this has been happening for decades. It was, if you go back to the 50s and 60s, kids were actually naked swimming in pools in gym class. So I mean, it's not like things are. I don't agree that things are degrading to the extent
You
that
can't
you do.
say it's as prevalent as it is now, and conflating the two is really
I
disingenuous.
think that
Listen, I tried.
social media
You
is
know, I
making
hope.
it seem more prevalent than it is. But if you go back decades and
Oh no,
decades, I would
I'm here to
disagree.
tell you. I'm here to tell you, as a person living in New York City, it is more prevalent than it is
Well, yeah,
being.
I don't dispute that, but the United States is more than just a single area of New York City or one person's standpoint. But I want to move on. I appreciate your comments. Uh,
Thank you.
I want to get to Admiral Blackwolf.
Yeah, what's going on, Brian? And what's up, Ed? Good afternoon to the room and everything. And I'm listening, man. And I'm wondering, like, how are we gonna sit here and compare outright pedophilic acts to adult entertainment? Like, we understand what adult entertainment is, and then as adults, you could actually just pick and choose those decisions, right? Like, we can't control a whole state. However, you can control certain actions. And the people that are in these videos are actual like bankers and people of importance. So how are we not like trying to hold them accountable when I thought the community had this stuff under control or more better regulated?
I think it comes down to laws, like Caroline was mentioning. I think we need better laws. I think most of us agree that nudity shouldn't be allowed in cities or in public areas. I think probably the majority of Americans agree on that, just like the majority of Americans agree that children shouldn't be able to get married. Like we shouldn't be seeing 16-year-olds marrying 50-year-olds and then having sex with them essentially legally since they're married. I mean, I think that's a legal form of pedophilia, right? So, but we don't get the laws passed for whatever reason. These laws aren't passed, and I don't know why. Maybe because they're just not as concerning to those who are creating the laws. Maybe there's other motives involved too. I don't know, but I did think it's something that should be discussed more frequently.
And don't you think it's censorship if you're telling people they can't, like, they shouldn't be posting certain things? Because, not everybody, like, including myself, attends these events. However, I could use things like social media platforms like Twitter, which is pretty informative with truthful information, and understanding this is what people are further participating in. Because I hold my own Twitter spaces, and I talked about this even yesterday, and then I seen this video and I'm like, well, here it is. Like, this is a problem. This is the exact problem we're talking about. And the people that are like being exposed through social media platform alone is just showing the age group and category of those involved. And it's like, we know that this is a know how, know better. Somebody was talking about the decency or the acceptance of nudity in the household. I'm like, that's your private household. Your household doesn't speak for the majority of America. So using that to, compare where it's okay for the rest of the public, I think that's crossing even further boundaries, right? So, how do we address stuff like this, and where do we draw the line of understanding, especially as adults, when it comes to protecting children, especially with all the missing children and stuff going on now?
I think those are all
Good
great
question.
questions.
Diana, maybe you want to try and answer those or give your opinions on that.
Hey, Brian and Ed, thanks for having me, and I appreciate what y'all are doing. I push back on a lot of your tweets. And so I was just going to comment. I don't know if I can answer that question because there's a lot going on in all of this, the grooming and everything. But, this world naked bike ride, that's when I pulled up Twitter today because I'm from Chicago and I accidentally, when I was with my children, they were having it this past weekend when we happened to be into town, and they were teens at the time, and it was very disturbing for me as a parent because I didn't know it was happening, but apparently they get a permit, and this happens globally. And so while I was listening to this call, I guess there's like 25 cities that participate, and I'm sure that Portland has been doing this forever. So there's definitely two different things, and it coincides with Pride Month, and so Go Pride Chicago actually posts this event as part of their Pride festivities or whatever. But I did want to say, I think about your tweet, Brian, because I read your tweets and I obviously comment, and I'm usually disagreeing with almost everything y'all say because I lean conservative. But I think you could have stopped with saying that you don't think it's going to harm any child to see anyone naked. I think you don't understand how different children and how they grow up. I mean, I grew up very modestly. I never saw my father naked nor my mom. And so I've raised my children the same way. And so I think that you can't make this blanket statement saying that, yeah, it might not affect your children because they may have seen you naked. I mean, I didn't know what a man looked like naked until I saw one myself. But anyway, and then too, about Libs of TikTok. I really think they're doing great things in exposing the grooming that's going on with American children. Because anytime you sexualize a child, you strip away a little bit of their innocence. And like one of the other speakers said, she may be gone at this point, but you can't, that child can never get that back. And it's this slow desensitizing them of what, like to basically get at them for, nefarious reasons to sexualize them.
Diana, I don't you think it would have been better of Libs of TikTok? It could have been just as effective if they blurred out the nude parts of this man on the bike.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that be a better way of doing it?
So I was thinking about that too, because I didn't know that 13 year, I mean, yeah, Libs of TikTok. I don't have it. I mean, a TikTok account and there's kids on that. And then also, so did she share that on Libs of TikTok, like on TikTok as well as on Twitter? Or because I don't ever think of kids being on Twitter. I know that the age is
Yeah, so
13. I
so
never,
so I know I went over this before, but you weren't in here. There's actually 6.6% of Twitter's users in the last month have been kids between 13 and 17 years old. They had 440 million monthly active users in the last month, which would equate to about 30 million kids on Twitter. Libs of TikTok has 2.6 million followers. Many of these, thousands, I would say for sure, are kids. And they tweeted out this video of naked men, and kids for sure saw it. And they did so
Well,
to attack people who were putting kids in front of naked people. So,
and the other thing is you don't have to follow an account to see their tweets.
right,
It's broadcasted on Twitter.
right, exactly. But I do agree with Caroline, what she said about, I mean, to, I actually think Libs of TikTok has done a great job exposing a lot of things. And if a kid sees the video, that's one thing because they're expecting to see a lot of lewd behavior on Libs of TikTok because it's all there. I mean, do I think it's good that 13-year-old kids are seeing that? No. But I think 13-year-olds are a lot older than I was when I was 13, and a lot of other kids that are raised in more modest environments. So, I mean, was it like, do I appreciate what she said about y'all? Because I mean, I've come to your defense now after reading your story. I used to call you guys FBI operatives and all that stuff all the time back a while ago, like 6 months or whatever before. So I really like what you guys are doing and how moderate you've become and trying to share both sides of the issue. But I do I'm really adamant just because I've had to take classes because I teach in Catholic schools as a Sunday school teacher about recognizing signs of grooming. And so this 100%, anytime any kind of nudity, any kind of anything when it comes to sexualizing a kid is wrong and it shouldn't be done. And so I was also just reading about nudity laws, and apparently like public nudity is not really allowed. It is allowed, but when it becomes lewd or to arouse, or
yeah,
that's when it
that's
becomes,
correct.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like
So
in Seattle, it's 100% legal, but if there is a lewd act, then it becomes illegal. Go ahead.
Or if it's obscene. But I mean, I guess it depends on what you draw the line. What's obscene, right?
right. Well, so like I've never been to a pride parade, but I've seen some of the videos, and I mean, there's a lot of lewdness and sexuality there. Like any parent that takes their child there, I mean, that's on them. I think it's wrong, but I would never take my child there. But when you're actually forced, like I was, my children were forced to see this, and it, and it. This one in Chicago happens at dusk, and so that was around 9 o'clock. But it's still pretty light out, and it's in the summer when everybody's out on the streets, and it went on for blocks. I mean, it never ended. We were just trying to walk back to our hotel room, and so we had this forced upon us. And so that's where I take issue with, of course they had a permit and everything, but how, I mean, why is this allowed in public? Like it's not a public beach where I knew, like I was not aware. So yeah, we definitely need to fix like and it's really not that many cities in the United States, so it's obviously the ones that lean very left that are doing this, but it's still not. I guess if
So I agree, and I think I think it shouldn't be forced on us. I think we shouldn't have to be scared of going outside, especially with our kids, and then having a naked man show up in front of us that our kids have to look at and we have to explain to them about. But at the same time, I also think we shouldn't have to our kids we shouldn't have to log onto Twitter and see these posts as well. So I think Twitter has to do a better job of preventing people from seeing this. I think big accounts like Libs of TikTok have to do a better job of not posting it, or at least censoring this stuff when they're posting it, knowing that kids are going to see it. Brian, I think you had something you wanted to add
Yeah,
too.
yeah. My biggest gripe with Libs of TikTok was the fact that they skewed what I said. They made a post saying that I defend men riding naked and flashing their genitals to kids. And I actually said the exact opposite of that. In the very thread of that tweet, I said I do not defend it, and I said that I am against it. And they took my comments and just totally made it out to be the opposite of what I said. And then I have literally over 100 either threatening or disgusting DMs in my inbox. I got several phone calls today because they decided to change what I said or change what I meant by what I said. So that was my problem with them. That I think that it's disingenuous. I think that they should be correcting that, especially given the fact that I posted right under it what I actually did say about the event and how I was against it, and I said that children shouldn't be there. So
So
that
Brian, I mean, being a longtime Twitter user, now that we have the extended tweets, I honestly don't like to open them. And so if they just looked at the very first, image of your tweet or whatever, what they could see by just scrolling through their feed. I mean, with you just saying, hey, there's worse things that could happen, right there to me, I mean, if somebody's looking to discredit you and make you out to be some far leftist who thinks this is okay to groom kids, that's exactly what she did. I mean, I can
yeah.
see how
But
she did
but you
it.
know what, Diana, I have to take issue with that, because if you have 2 million or 1 million or whatever many followers, you have a responsibility to open up that tweet, and you know this platform. So I
Well,
don't think that's a that,
well, I
I
mean,
don't.
that's the reality,
That's my
though.
personal
But
opinion. I
I
wouldn't
mean,
get away with that. So
well,
I
but
don't see
Sphinx,
how
I
someone
mean,
who's
we all use Twitter. I mean, it's a quick, like, I mean, you get information very fast. That's why it's the only social media that I use. I mean, it's just like, I mean, constant information, and it's quick, and people, I mean, tweet things rashly, quickly. And that's all I'm saying is that
yeah, I'm not buying that as an excuse. I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah, no,
not.
I see where
Yeah.
Diana's coming from, but I agree with Sphinx that, like, if you have 2.6 million followers, you better be sure to be tweeting accurately. And if it is brought to your attention, which it was to Libs of TikTok, that what you said is inaccurate, you should delete it or at least correct it, which they have yet to do. Um,
I think the problem is that I think you can think that it's wrong for kids to see this nudity. You can think that it's not right that this is forced on kids, or forced, a kid's walking down the street and they're forced to see this naked person. But you can also think that you can also know in your mind that you haven't yet seen a study that shows that merely seeing nudity is going to be damaging to a child. I do know I've done research on this because before the space, and there are actually studies that say the opposite. Studies say that children seeing nudity on TV, as long as it's not in a sexual connotation, is not lewd acts, is not obscene, then it's not damaging to children. There's actually studies of this. There's actually academic studies showing that children seeing nudity within their household is actually good for body image. So I mean, I'm sure you could probably find a study that would say the opposite and say it is damaging, but I haven't been able to find one. I think if somebody can post that, that would be great. But at the same time, I wouldn't take my kids to somewhere where I think they're going to see somebody naked. And I don't think it should be forced on anyone to be forced to see somebody naked. So I think that's the difference. Brian made that tweet, and they took the last part of the tweet basically saying that he doesn't think that children are being damaged by just seeing somebody naked. and use that to paint the entire picture of his opinion when he explicitly said that he doesn't believe that children should have to see this.
Right, right. I mean, and y'all know how polarizing things are, especially on Twitter, even in our society right now. And I'm so glad that you guys are trying to, show both sides and like kind of like, I guess maybe just cool off the rhetoric or whatever, because that's been the most encouraging thing to me is that you guys have this big platform and you're doing this. So I think it's great. And I do think it's wrong, but I can see why she did it because that's her platform. And I know, yes, she does have a responsibility, but that's basically what she's built her platform on is exposing anything that would harmfully affect their, well, really, I mean, because they're trying to disassociate themselves with the T and the Q, like basically the people that are coming after the kids. They just really want to stick with the LG, I think B part.
I want to move on from this, but if they really are worried about what they claim to be worried about kids seeing this content or about the truth being put out there, then don't lie. Don't say that I said something that I didn't say. And also don't tweet the uncensored video when thousands of kids are going to see it. That's my argument, and I stick to it. I think that it's a bit disingenuous that they're saying that they're so worried about this when they're lying and then they're tweeting the video out. Just edit the video, censor it. I
Yeah,
could
I
literally
mean,
censor the video in 20 minutes.
am I the only one that doesn't know that a lot of kids, 13 and above are using Twitter? Because I really thought I didn't know that. And I have been on Twitter since
Yeah. I mean,
2016.
the
So,
terms of service will allow any 13-year-old to sign up. Like I said, there's 30 million people on Twitter in the last month who are between the ages of 13 and 17.
yeah,
At
that's a
least
lot.
they claim that.
Well, and of course, it should be up
But
to
when did you
parents
guys
to
find
prevent
that
their
out?
kids.
Like, when did you guys find out that those statistics? I mean, clearly you looked them up within the last day or
No,
two,
no.
right?
I mean, I've known for for years that there's a large presence of children on Twitter. I didn't know the exact numbers, but I knew for years that kids are on Twitter. I mean, you can see like some of the things that trend from time to
Is it
time are
access
things
to
that.
porn? Is that why? I mean, I can't, why are they on?
Yeah, I've never seen a tweet from a child on Twitter. A disclaimer, guys. I used to write for Libs of TikTok, so I worked for them for a while. And I just want to say something real quick about you guys saying like they're lying about you saying that you were, you know, excusing
No. So,
groomers, right?
this is what they said. They said Brian Krasenstein defends adult men riding around naked and flashing their dicks to kids.
Right, you had a disclaimer. Right, so you did have in there that you like denounce what they're doing, but you said it could be worse. Like there worse things could happen, and that's like saying like, oh, she got raped, but it could
No,
have been worse.
but
She
do
got
you
murdered.
disagree that things
You know,
could be
do you see
worse?
that? Do you see the
No,
nuance
but
there? Like you are, and you were just doing it now, kind of defending them. Like, well, studies say it's okay to have people be kids see naked people. It's like you're not
it's the
completely like
facts.
condoning it, but
It's
you
the
are
Sorry,
facts.
definitely
We're
making
not defending
excuses
them,
for.
Lisa.
You're making excuses for them. I'm
Lisa,
sorry. I'll go ahead.
Lisa, I come from the right, and it's pretty obvious that libs of TikTok distorts reality.
No, actually, they really don't. I mean,
So,
listen. I've got a couple of. I had one issue where I didn't agree with something that they did. Right, so I'll definitely be one of the people
so,
to
so I'm
call out what they do. But they really don't. Like we get these inboxes. Like because I used to have to go check like all the inboxes, right, of all the leads that come in. And we have to go in. Like I was one of the people because I wrote the Substack that would have to go in and research and make sure it's valid and make sure we had an original email and make sure every piece of evidence that we had was legitimate before it was posted. And so they're not like distorting. You guys knew how ubiquitous this is. This isn't like they have a one here and there and they're cherry picking the topics. We
yeah,
can't even
yeah.
check all the
I'm sorry.
leads.
I mean,
It's
I look.
so
I'm center right myself. I'm also gay, and I'm also a dad. And when Libs of TikTok came out, at first I thought, wow, this is good. This is drawing attention to a lot of the cultural excesses that I kind of agree are a little bit too much. And over time, I've really come to believe that it's toxic for discourse, and it really misrepresents reality. I mean, drag queen story hour, just as an example, like I wouldn't take my kid there. I've never, like, it's not really even a real issue. Like, I've never, if you don't want to go, like,
But it
no,
is.
it's
Like I live in
never
Philadelphia
been
and we've
forced on
got we've
anybody.
got
Let me finish, please. Second, like
okay.
calling teachers groomers, like, I'm sorry, but overusing the word groomer, I think it's really irresponsible. I mean, my kids in just finished kindergarten, and if somebody called one of his teachers a groomer because on Mother's Day they're trying to accommodate other families or kids without moms, like, that's just wrong.
That's not what
And
people are talking
well,
But
I
yeah, but
just think
that's not what we're
no,
talking about. And let
and
me
then the
finish my
incentives
point.
around clout and grift. I mean, it's a clout seeking operation and grift seeking.
But it's
It's
not.
owned by Babylon B, and it's part of the Daily Wire is the same way, where these guys are doing clout and grift seeking, and they're not actually solving problems. And
It's really not
it
true though.
really
And
Let
you
me
distorts.
think
explain
Let me
why.
finish.
people who regularly receive
Lisa, let Jeff finish, and I'll give you a chance to.
Yeah, and thanks, Ed and Brian. I apologize for jumping in. Um, I just got a little triggered there. But yeah, no, so just my story was going from somebody who thought, yeah, this is actually good. It's drawing attention. And I really don't like what they're doing. And I think it's kind of wrong. And just to kind of draw out a couple other points I think are important to make. And, June's an interesting month for me because Pride is huge and it's all month. And then at the same time, Father's Day comes by and it's just a small thing. So I think we need to, like, why aren't there parades for Father's Day? Like, I think we need to I think one point that the right has is, like, looking at our cultural priorities, like Pride, all these corporate marketing dollars are supporting Pride. We have Rainbow Doritos and all that stuff. And then Father's Day comes along and it's like an afterthought. And it's just a day, whereas Pride's an entire month. So I think there's a real imbalance there of our cultural priorities to think about. And then the also thing, like, I've been thinking about lately is trying to make space for people, like personally, I come at this from, like, where's common sense? And if you, and like, on when people were boycotting Target and Bud Light, like, I'm in a Facebook group with gay fathers, like tens of thousands of them, and like nobody's buying rainbow. These things just aren't even on the radar, like, within that community. And so there's a real common sense middle ground, middle path through a lot of these issues that I think sometimes gets lost, that we really need to hold on to. And yeah, where I was going with that is, like, I think there's this line, like, I personally, like, I just tweeted out, like, Obergefell, like, I'm actually grateful for Obergefell. I'm also sympathetic to the Equality Act. Like, I think equality under the law is good. I think we should pursue that for the
Can I just
entire,
go?
no,
I get all
no,
that. Can I
no,
go to the lives
no,
of
no,
TikTok part?
but we should
We're
Hey,
separate
going
that.
over 10 minutes.
We should
wait,
separate.
guys. Jeff, and take another 60 seconds, and then I'll let
Yeah,
Lisa
sure.
go on.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that I think we need to create space for people who maybe not be comfortable. Like, I'm not comfortable with a lot of the excesses of the LGBT cultural agenda. Like, I don't like a lot of licentiousness being smuggled under the cover of equal rights. Like, I think it's perfectly legitimate to be appalled by the guy twerking naked at a pride parade in front of children. Like, I am appalled by that, and at the same time support equality under the law. And so I think there's a middle ground and middle space here where you can, where you can support equality of the law and then also resist some of these cultural trends. And on the left, like, I do think there's a need to just say, like, enough.
Lisa, go ahead.
I just want to touch back on, like, the grifting part of Lives of TikTok and say, I don't work there anymore, right? So I don't have any loyalty to them at all. However, you don't see the benefits that are happening, like, I guess, behind the scenes. For example, there was a school, and it's the best public school in Philadelphia, that in first grade for sixth graders. Now I have a first grader. I don't send them to public school, but they were doing a drag queen story hour, and a liberal mother, sent us a lead, and she was freaking out. She's like, I feel like this is all of a sudden, this has become too much for me. I feel like I'm alone. I don't have any allies. And this is just one story, but there's multiple of them. And then these parents, like, they'll send us leads and then they get afraid. They get afraid that they're going to get retaliated against, and then we don't publish those articles. They're afraid. And so what it's doing is like it's saying, hey, there's a lot of parents that have a problem with this. You're not alone. You can fight back against this stuff, and exposing it. If we didn't do that, now they canceled that drag queen story hour for first graders in Philadelphia. And then we got thank yous from other parents that were in the school that didn't reach out to us because they were afraid. And so you're saying that it's not like it's overblowing it, or it's, but I can tell you from experience, and I can name these places. I mean, it's in Oklahoma, in weird cities that aren't a city that you would never even think of, and it's everywhere. And it's becoming younger and younger and younger. We're talking there was kindergartens and preschools in California. It is everywhere. They are doing it, and I think that while Libs of TikTok, yeah, do I think they should have blurred out the penis? Absolutely, okay, but Hi is not that tech savvy, to be fair. And like here as a parent, I shared that too. Like I shared it, and I don't let my kids on any social media at all. So to be fair, I should have blurred what I tweeted out too. But I don't like. I wasn't thinking that kids are on TikTok because mine aren't allowed, and I haven't seen that kids active on there. It's not one of the programs like TikTok that they use. But
Yeah,
I'm not making an excuse for them. They should do that, but you still can't say that what they're doing is grifting, because everything that they put out is real, and it's not
sure,
even a tenth
sure,
of what
sure, but there's a,
of what. Wait, whoa, it's my turn, right?
Yeah, Jeff, let Lisa finish.
So it's not even a tenth of what they put out. We get lots of stories all the time, and then the parents are like, "Oh, we kind of resolved the issue on our own. Could you not post it now?" Even after we've had all the evidence and the stories written up. I mean, we're really good to these parents, and they look they used to be. We were really good to these parents, and we really gave them an outlet and felt like they had a fighting chance, because they are up against it with these school boards, with the liberal media, with being canceled, with their jobs. I mean, Libs of TikTok is actually providing a service behind the scenes that you're completely unaware of, and sitting there calling it grifting.
well, can I respond to that in just 20 seconds?
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Lisa, I actually think you make a lot of good points about it, and I do think there are benefits of exposing some of this stuff. Where I struggle, though, is there is a fine line between exposing something and bringing awareness to an issue, and kind of making this pornographic thing where it's like, ha ha ha, look at those crazy people over there, and elevating it as if it's a reality when it's kind of portraying it as a spectacle. So I think there is value in exposure and raising awareness that these issues are happening, but it crosses a line for me when it becomes this almost pornographic thing, and it's like this ha ha ha, look at this spectacle, and takes on a life of its own and results in really irresponsible acts on other people. So I don't know. There's a little bit of a balance there to strike, I think.
Yeah, so I want to just say a couple things here. So I want to address Lisa. You said that you were kind of offended by my tweet because I said there's things worse than a kid going to a bike rally with their parent.
Well, I didn't say I was offended.
Well,
I just said
I don't know what word you used.
I said that it's you're not defending it, but you are kind of making excuses around it. That's how I read it. That's how I read it.
I respect that. I think you read it wrong. But I basically said that I think there are things worse that kids are going to see and be exposed to on the internet that are worse than a kid seeing a man naked riding a bike while they go attend a parade.
So
with
then
their
why
kids.
are you mad that she reposted
What's
it?
that?
So then why are you mad that she reposted
No,
it?
I'm not mad at all that she reposted it. I'm fine with it being posted. What I'm mad about is the context that she put in the post, saying Brian Krasenstein defends adult men riding around naked and flashing their. And I think it's hypocritical. It's like, don't you think it's hypocritical if you're posting the same video that you're saying you don't think that children should see this man riding his bike naked, but you're posting it for children to see.
It was
like,
first of all, it's not like she posted it on Nickelodeon here. Okay.
Yeah, but obviously, but she's like, I would argue that more children probably saw it. No, it's for sure. It's a certainty that they did.
Absolutely not. And we're talking about children.
Wait, Lisa, do you know how many kids are on Twitter in the last month? 30 million.
you're talking about teenagers. I'm talking there were
Yeah, see,
6-year-olds
I agree
there.
with Lisa,
Okay,
man, and I think y'all are like
let's be fair
leveraging a
here.
certain point of that conversation. It's like you playing like devil's advocate. In one breath, you're like, "All right, it's wrong, but how about we leverage it with this reality that's going on right here?"
No,
It's
no, okay.
like one side of the fence. Like, I mean, my thing is this: is what I was asking earlier. When you're saying you're making a stance, what stance are you actually making? Because it draws a lot of contradiction, and it's funny that Jeff even spoke about common sense because it's the gay community talking about common sense, and you know what type of contradiction that has in the real
Okay,
world of people who can
here's the
address
stance.
that. So
Here's my stance before I get back to what I was trying to say. My stance is that parents should not be taking their kids to see events where adults are running around naked in any way. That's my stance. My stance is also that accounts that have millions of followers on Twitter shouldn't be sharing events, video, uncensored video of adults running around naked when kids are 100% seeing it, hundreds or thousands of kids. Uh, that's my stance. Can libs of TikTok say the same? They can't. I can. And they're trying to make me out to be this disgusting person simply because I said there's things worse than a kid seeing a naked man on a bike. And there are. If you go onto the internet, if your kid has access to the internet and there aren't filters in place, they're going to see people having their heads chopped off. They're going to see
Even if there are filters in place, they're going to
right.
see stuff.
It's
Like I said,
So
you
that
agitprop.
was
have
the
that's
point.
the
That was my point. And I know people are going to say, "Oh, I'm trying to deflect." It's important to note that in the thread, in the post, I clearly said I was against kids being brought to this event. And then Libs of TikTok made the post after this saying that I defend adult men riding around naked and flashing their dicks at kids.
But you could see why, because it was more like you were making excuses for them. I mean, you would say I condone it, but I mean, kids have seen worse, so it's not that bad. Like, come on, like that to me, and that to the majority of people is defending
No,
it.
it's
saying
the
there's
fact you
things
don't go
worse
into
than
No,
Like,
no,
something
it's
you're
else.
not.
detail.
an
It's
She
the
accuser
was not.
right
limited
there.
details that it's literally that
sorry.
limited
Oh,
detail
Jeff.
that you're willing to put on the emphasis of your stance on what you believe is the negative aspect. But it's like when I read the post, bro, like, for those that can actually read it, is you put way more detail and graphic visualization on the part that you actually stand on. So that's where people are
No,
calling it
okay,
The
so
point is
contradiction.
so
that Chaya is not operating in good faith. I mean, that's really the point here.
But I think she
okay,
is,
but
honestly. I
No.
mean, to me, I read it the same. I read the whole tweet the same way she put it.
but did you
Like
read
that
the
is
30
you're making
tweets before
excuses
it?
for this
Did you
behavior.
read the 30 tweets before it where I took a stand against it and said that I'm against it and I would never bring a kid to it and that I don't think parents should be bringing their kids to these events? Because if you did, you'd see
Yeah,
that
but
I
then when you
totally said the
qualify it with a
opposite of what they
but,
claimed. And they saw it. I know they saw it because it was in the thread and I pointed it out to them.
I saw it too. But when you qualify, it's like saying something. When you qualify it with a but, or you whatever, you're taking away from the thing that you were condoning. I mean, that's how
So,
that
so,
was
so
works.
what if I said Hitler was a horrific person, but he did like spaghetti and I like spaghetti too? Is that
No, but if you were
You're
to
not
say
making a
if you
moral.
like
You're not
Kanye and
making a
say
moral claim
Hitler
there.
was a did bad things and he was a bad person, but he also did some good things, like he said, he got canceled off the internet for that because it negates what he said
Are you
before that.
willing to
so?
make this statement without the however
I
and
did
if?
several times. You can go back to my
I'm
tweets. I
saying
said
without
period.
leveraging, are you willing to make the statement without leveraging anything else to it at
I
all?
did several times. Go back to my tweets. I do not condone parents bringing kids to these events. Period.
Do you
Well,
not
then that
see
should have been the
But
tweet.
it
how
was.
it
That's the
feels
thing. It
like
was.
wanting to have
No,
your
no,
cake and
wait.
eat it too,
Let me
though?
speak. It was the tweet. I made that tweet. I said that it's disgusting and that people should be arrested. This was before I knew it was legal in Seattle. And then in a reply, along with 30 other replies, I added the other content in a discussion replying to somebody else. So, like,
I get it.
it's
I
so
get it.
out
My
of
point again
context.
that when you qualify things or you say but, it negates what you said prior, just like it did for
I know,
Kanye.
but that's not what I did. This was a reply that they tweeted in a separate conversation from my original post.
All right. Well, you're saying they're disingenuous. I'm saying that you negated it by the but,
Yeah, I
whatever.
mean, I'm just saying,
Uh,
looking at it from the
applies it
scholarly
then.
level, anybody that has, any type of academia out of college or anything that would read that truly would see the contradiction in the statement and is just going to challenge that. Not saying that your intent is ill will, but they're going to ask you when it's chance when you get to vocalize, you know what I'm saying? Stand on what you wrote. So we're asking you then, like, at this point,
But
is it really leveraged with what you're saying? Do you really
the,
believe
the,
in
the
leverage
problem
points?
is that the tweet was a reply to another tweet in a thread of several different replies, and they took it to be a single tweet, ignoring everything I said before that, which included me speaking out about the event, saying that I don't condone it and I think it's disgusting and that the people should be arrested. I said the exact opposite of what they claimed. And then I'm attacked for it as some pedophile because I said the exact opposite, and they skewed it to mean something totally away from what I said. Who cares if I said there's other things worse? There are other things worse. People getting their heads chopped off is worse than a kid seeing somebody naked. I
Why is that
but
relevant? Why is
because it
that
was in a
something that you
conversation
must
totally
say?
away from what my original tweet was. It's not relevant to this, but it was relevant to the conversation. And that involved several different replies with different people that started retweeting other things and commenting. So it's not relevant, but it also doesn't mean that I support it in any way. And I clearly said that. And they know I said that, yet they continue to propagate it. That's my problem. Let's go to Joni's horses. Are you there, Joni? I know you weren't there earlier.
Yeah. First of all, I have been to Seattle when they've had the parade, and not everybody is nude, but several are. And as far as nudity with children, no, it depends on the age. I don't think it's age appropriate for young ones.
Joni, are there typically children at the parade?
Not that I've seen. Now, I've only been to one, and that was several years ago. I didn't see any young children. I did see a couple of um, older teenagers, but they didn't seem to have a problem with it. And of course, nobody was doing their dinghy in front of anybody either. So I didn't see any of that. Now, as far as nudity for older children, I'm an artist and I've taken art classes professionally. And yes, we do have a nude model to draw, whether it be a male or female. I also live in Florida, and yes, there are a hell of a lot of nude beaches down here that aren't just private. And you do see a lot of nude people walking around, whether it's male, female, children. I don't believe young children should do it, but like you said, it's up to the parent. I don't condone what the parents are doing all the time, but it is their choice. And I can't tell them, okay, just because I don't believe it and I wouldn't do it with my children. At the same token, when they're older teenagers and I want to take them to a class with art and there's a new model, I don't have a problem with that. Now, would I bring a little kid in? No. Okay. So I think
That's really a
there's an
good point.
age appropriate way to do it also.
That's a really good point because we do know that there's nude models and children, I think as young as like 10, have drawn nude models as part of art classes and art programs that they take part in. So where's the line? Like at what age should children not be able to see somebody naked, whether it's for art purposes or whether it be somebody riding a bike in a parade? Like
Right. Well,
what is that
that's
line?
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. There's a difference between nudity and the more pedophile kind of nudity. There's a big difference. Okay. I don't think a child should be ashamed of their body. At the same token, would they have seen maybe their parent when they were younger? Run out of the shower or accidentally walk into the bathroom when their parent is in the shower? Yeah, it happened to me. Did I get all bent out of shape over it? No, I said, "Oops, excuse me," and left. Okay, in the meantime, like I said, I'm a professional artist. I've taken professional art school classes, and I've taken my teenage son and daughter to those classes where there was a nude model. Now, when they were younger, would I have done it when they were younger? Nah, 5, 6, 7 year olds. I think I'd wait till they're in their mid-teens to higher teens to do that. I
Yeah,
think there is
and
age
also
appropriate way to do things.
yeah, exactly. And also we had to state that when somebody's drawing a nude model, they volunteered to draw that model, and the parents, I assume, also approved of it. Like for example, like if say a 15-year-old who's taking advanced classes in college, they have a college art class and they draw a nude model in that class. I mean that happens. I'm pretty sure it happens pretty frequently. Is that something that should be prohibited? Should it be illegal for 15-year-old children to draw nude art, to draw a nude model? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Caroline?
That's not something that I really had considered. I don't really have an opinion on it because that's not something that I've taken time to consider, but I think that this is part of the problem of why we can't get things done in these discussions is because we have to figure out every situation, what we think about what is or isn't appropriate. And I think that's why you had people coming for you
I, I,
in
I think
reply.
I think a lot of it has to do with lines we draw too, right? So like what age is appropriate? Maybe 17 is appropriate, but 14 is not. How about 15? Is that appropriate? How about 16? Is that appropriate? And same goes for, marriage and dating and, dating, like should a 16-year-old be able to date and have sex with an 18-year-old? Should a 17-year-old? Like I think those are lines that people disagree on, and it's hard to come up with laws when you can't agree on where that line should be drawn.
That's fair. And I think that in general, like when we're just talking about like normal activities that adults partake in, whether that's drinking, smoking, going to war, being able to rent a car, being able to get married, all of the being able to purchase a firearm, all of these different things. Like I take a general approach of we should decide what when you become an adult and you are granted your full rights, and that is the age at which all of those things should occur. We shouldn't be having a debate about, can we push gun purchases to the age of 25? It's like, okay, if you're an adult at 18, you can be held criminally liable and tried as an adult. You should have all of the rights that you are due as an adult. Something earlier that was brought up was the feeling that this type of conversation is being used to target a specific group of people. Again, I would go back to the whole conversation around the right really has a problem with the activist class. And I would actually posit that a lot of the time the activist class kind of becomes this lightning rod because there is a push every few years for a particular cause, and that tends to be the topic of conversation on both the left and the right. So when we have this conversation of like, well, why do you only care when it's gay people? Well, Me Too was not that many years ago. That was 2017. That was 5 years ago. At the time, I was nannying for a family, and one of the daughters had heard something that was on the TV before I had come to the house for the day, and was asking me about, I believe it's Dr. Nasser, who was responsible for sexually abusing members of the women's U.S. gymnastics team. And that was like a very uncomfortable thing to have a 10-year-old ask me about. And I avoided as much of that conversation as I could, but I just let her. It clearly had gleaned quite a bit of what was happening on television. And I said, hey, This is not a conversation that I feel comfortable having with you without your mom knowing. And I'm not gonna explain to you what sex is. I'm not gonna let you guess if you're correct in thinking what sex is. What I am gonna tell you is, if an adult ever does anything to make you feel uncomfortable or guilty, you need to go tell your mom. And I'm going to have a conversation with your mom when she gets home to let her know that we had this conversation. And that's exactly the way that it should go. But like, that is not where we're at in society. There are people who, so I say all of that to illustrate 5 years ago, everyone was talking about Me Too. It was the thing that the left wouldn't shut up about. And so it became the topic of conversation that everyone was having. And right now you have the Trevor Project, you have all of these LGBTQIA plus activists making sure that this is the top of mind issue. And so if you've worked very, very hard to make sure that this is the top of mind issue, don't be upset when it's the top of mind issue. All of these things work in cycles. It's very natural. But when people on the right have had an opportunity to be mad at other things happening, not by gay people, they have taken it.
You know,
So I just,
I see what you're saying. I just think that a lot of times, and I think Libs of TikTok is definitely doing this, is that they take a single incident where a few people participate in behavior that I would say shouldn't be taking place, and then use it to try and paint an entire group of people, to the LGBT community, in a way. And this parade wasn't even a pride event. Like I said before, it was an event that takes place every year for the last 34 or 35 years. It's basically a celebration of people's bodies, and they paint them, and it's art. I don't think kids should be there. I agree. But I think that a lot of times these things are used as political
Brian,
talking points.
did you
Go.
see the one in Milwaukee with the guy in the whitey
Yeah,
tighties twerking for
I
kids?
think it's
I mean,
ridiculous. I wouldn't take a kid.
Minnesota or wherever it was. I mean, they were all over the place yesterday. It wasn't just there. There was Toronto, there was New York, there was Minnesota. And so you're acting like it's an outlier, but it's not an outlier because it's at every single one of these parades. There's some form of extra depravity.
So do we blame the parents for taking a child to an event like this? Do we blame a parent for giving a child?
Yes.
yeah,
Not
To,
only
to,
do we blame
no,
parents and the law.
let me finish. Let me finish, Lisa.
Okay.
Do we also blame a parent for allowing a 15-year-old to take a college class where they would draw a nude model? Like, where's the line for you?
Yeah, you would. Yes, you would. What you do is exactly what Carolyn said. You set an age limit, and all the things that get associated with that at that age limit is it. I will
What
say
is that limit to you, Lisa?
18.
So,
18.
so you don't
Yeah.
think a 17-year-old freshman should be able to draw a nude model in college?
I'm first of all, 17-year-olds aren't in college.
Yeah,
I
yes, sir. I have
graduated
a
young.
17-year-old in my class.
All right, well,
There's
I
15-year-olds
graduated
in
young,
college.
and no, you should wait till you're 18. I mean, my whole thing is that if you're gonna have numbers, they can't be arbitrary. You can't say you can go fight for our country, but you can't buy a gun, or you can't buy a gun, or you can't rent a car, or you can't buy alcohol, right? Or you can't smoke cigarettes, or whatever it is. And so, if you can't have sex until you're 18, you can't be like having other people show you sexual things
Well,
before
I
you're
mean, you
18.
can have sex before you're 18, right? As long
But
as it's not with somebody over 18.
I don't think that should be allowed either. I honestly, the point is that, you're like, and you're doing it again. You're kind of like making excuses for this type of
No,
degeneracy.
I'm not making excuses. I'm trying to find out where your line is, because I feel like I want to know. I want to know, like, where people
My
think
line is
the
there
age line
should
should be.
be like, so when it's in a parade on a public street where people have to go to the CVS to pick up their medicine, or they have to walk back to their hotel, or they have to do any of those things, there should be no lewd content or nudity at all.
I agree. I agree 100% with you, Lisa. I agree 100% on that with you. But at the same time, if it's not illegal and a parent takes their child to that event, I mean, shouldn't that just be up to the parent? Shouldn't that be the parent's
Can
decision?
it
Can a parent bring their child to a strip club?
Nope.
No,
well, there you go.
Can
But
I
they
can
could
I
do
Does
it
that
jump
in.
answer
but
the
in?
that's
question?
illegal, though. There's a difference.
Ed,
We need
Because I'm
laws.
saying, we're saying this should be illegal.
Yeah,
Everything
no,
that we
I
saw
agree
on
it
the
should be
internet should be
illegal, but
illegal.
why isn't it? Why aren't state legislators like?
Because they
let
have
me.
the LGBTQ cult
How about
harassing
some
them and sitting
hands
there
here?
going
Okay,
saying
wait,
this
wait,
is
hold on. Okay, Lisa.
I actually was involved in law enforcement in a narcotics and vice unit for 14 years. So let me preface it, but with that, so I can get some attention. There's four issues, and we're conflating all sorts of things here today. There's enforcement, there's content, there's censorship, and there's consent. Now, there isn't a state in this union, and likely a locale that doesn't have an ordinance addressing these issues. The problem is that they're selective enforcement. 30 years ago, you wouldn't see this shit on the street. It was limited to strip clubs for the most part. And we would involve liquor control as a cudgel or as a predicate to get in there and develop probable cause for a search warrant. The liberalization of states' attorneys and district attorneys and the selective enforcement has created a lot of confusion and has allowed a lot of bad behavior to take place. That's just a fact. And they're doing this despite standing law. We could probably function with what we have. We just choose not to enforce it. So
Well,
the
I mean,
beef,
to be fair though, there's multiple states and cities that nudity is legal in, though. So I think
that's
we need to get past
that,
laws that ban that first, right?
but that's, they are the exception. They're not the rule. Now, with regard to TikTok, forgetting libs of TikTok, there are more dangerous, there's more dangerous content that threatens the lives of teens that should be of greater concern. Now, I'm not advocating any sexual behavior. That's not the point. But if you're going to ask for censorship on Twitter or censorship by libs of TikTok, then you would be disingenuous, to use someone else's word, if you don't ask for censorship with these issues. You can't claim that content on libs of TikTok is exclusively their own. They're not out there with a production team, and they're not out there creating content that you find abhorrent. They're
But
media.
they're helping platform other content as well.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure where you're going with that. My point is, they shouldn't be held responsible. They shouldn't be self-censoring when it's also educational. Now, Brian and Ed, I have no clue with your beef with them with the particular tweet thread. Okay, so I'm not commenting on that. I didn't see it. But my concern is we have this, people have asked this question, what's age appropriate? Well, that's a shifting line because of society. We're caught in between. We're caught in between right now with selective enforcement and what we deemed appropriate. I don't know why we don't have this same kind of outrage when you talk about the quote unquote gender affirming care and mutilation, because to me that's a bigger issue, and it is disingenuous when you talk about age.
yeah. So
There's, and some of the, wait a minute,
go ahead.
Brian, some of the examples that you've thrown out are very small, Brian. You're trying to make them sound more prevalent
What are
than
you
they
referring to?
actually
What are
are.
you referring to?
You're talking about 17-year-olds drawing nudes in college and as a justification. We can't have general laws that are applicable to most circumstances with some of these minutia things that we've been discussing. With regard, again, going back to enforcement, it was very clear cut. And you'd write your report. You'd make arrests, and the state's attorney would make a decision on whether or not to prosecute. Did anybody go to jail behind this stuff? No. But many times the enforcement is necessary to stop the activity so that you don't have this activity in front of children who are not of the age of consent, who have the ability to rationalize what they're seeing. That's the
I
problem.
don't disagree with you, but so are you talking from a public standpoint or a private standpoint? Because there's also plenty of states that allow all sorts of family resorts that are nudist colonies where kids are naked in
But
front of kids.
Brian, we're talking public.
No,
We're talking
I was just trying
public.
to clarify what you were.
No, you can't control what's done in private, nor should you. It's not. It would be
Well,
unconstitutional.
I mean, it depends how you view it, right? So I mean, obviously you can control what happens in private if it breaks the law.
If there is a circumstance such as the one up in Boston, where the EMS arrived at a house and they found a bunch of perverts with some children. This happened last week or the week before. It started out as private, but the police now are on scene legitimately without a warrant, and they have probable cause to make the kinds of arrests we're talking about. But generally speaking, what happens behind closed doors happens behind closed doors. If you learn about it and you develop information that laws are being violated, that's a different story.
Yeah, no,
But I'm talking about public displays of moral turpitude.
no,
That's what we're
and
talking
I
about.
don't
And
think we
those laws
disagree.
exist. They
I don't
exist.
think we disagree that like I said several times, I don't think parents should be taking their kids to these events. Do I think that these events should be taking place? I think that's a issue of law. So Seattle allows for public nudity. This is an event that's allowed. Philadelphia allows for public nudity.
It's been a while. It may have been under a prior
Look at the
account because
White
now
House.
I'm
They
I'm
do it everywhere
I'm
they go.
I'm on my eighth. But I recall tweeting several times that had I been present during some of these story hours, which some get out of hand, I would make arrests. And then I would just throw it into the prosecutor's hands. You don't want to do something about it, that's on you. But I did my job because the law is there and I see damaging content for children.
All right, so I appreciate your perspective, especially as a member of law enforcement in the past. Uh, I want to move on. I know that Lisa had her hand raised. I'd love to hear what Lisa has to say.
No, I just said my point. Oh, I don't have
Hi.
anything to say. Oh, the different Lisa. Sorry, babe.
Hi, Lisa. Hi,
Hi, Lisa.
everyone. Hi, Sphinx. Hey.
Hi.
Hi. Um, guys, I just want to beg you. I want to beg you that to try to, when we have spaces, to try to find some common ground and try to find ways to make make these things that we all disagree are a little, unacceptable, to make them better. I don't know. I feel like um I feel like gay people are like, they're not like, something at the zoo, and I don't know why they're having parades. We get being a gay person in America is 100%, acceptable, and maybe there just shouldn't be parades, celebrating that kind of thing anymore. They're their own, group of people, and they're Americans, and just like we don't have, you know, black parades and,
Yeah, but
do you know what
if
I'm
they
saying?
want to, they can, right? I'm sure there are
Yeah,
parades where Black people cry down
sure.
their.
There's the Puerto Rican Day Parade. There's tons of parades. I lived in New York City for 22 years, and there's all kinds of parades. Dominican Republic, blah blah blah. But if you're gonna sign up, if you're gonna ask for a permit to have a parade, and city officials, sit down with you and talk about the parade and go over logistics, there should be rules, and there should be no, in any parade in any state. It shouldn't go by state laws. It should go by what, the event that's happening and what's permitted and what's not. And if they don't follow those rules, for everybody's sake, then they're not allowed to have it again, or they get fined, or whatever the deal is. I mean, there's ways, to do
Lisa,
these things where it's not so complicated.
beg my indulgence here. Emma Jo Morris of Breitbart lives in New York City. she's a follower of mine. She wrote a beautiful piece about how, and she's gay or lesbian, whatever, and married. And she wrote a piece about her disdain, the fact that this movement, this shift, is taking away from the achievements that the original community made, and that it's being conflated. I would encourage you to read the article.
I would love to read it. I think I completely 100% agree with that. You know, that's what I'm saying. It's like, why does there have to be a parade where human beings that have been fighting for the equal rights, and they're just normal people. They have kids, they have families, they get married, all these things that they asked for to be like everyone else. And then to go, I just think that the gay community really has to um, take a hand in this. If somebody is upset about something, somebody in the gay community, a representative or somebody who's has their head on straight, goes and meets with this person and says, look, they talk about it. They talk about what's acceptable and what they have to advocate for themselves. They have to make themselves seen in a different light. If you want to go to a nude beach, there should be nude beaches. If you want to not wear any clothes, and ride a bike, do it at a club at night. There's clubs for every single kind of thing that you want to do. That may be different, but it doesn't have to be on the street in the open. Every person that is in public doesn't want to see certain things, and that's okay.
Yeah,
But I don't just
I agree with you that I think that some of this stuff, and this isn't just gay pride parades, because this Seattle parade wasn't even affiliated with any gay pride event. It was actually in a totally different event that some gay pride people were in, but there were also plenty of other naked people riding bikes as well. So that's a separate issue. But I think that the issue comes when you start making rules for people when the laws say something different. So it's the laws that are the issue. If you want the laws changed, then you have to elect people that are going to change the laws. But you say that, hey, it's perfectly legal in Seattle to be naked on the street, and then, oh, this gay pride parade, these people want, or this biking parade, these people want to be naked, we shouldn't allow it. That's another story. I disagree. I don't think people should be able to just stroll into an event unknowingly and see nudity. I think that should be off limits, but that's an issue with laws, I think. I do want to get to Chief Trumpster because I know we had a back and forth. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening a little bit earlier today. I wasn't able to listen to the entire entire space. I was kind of at work. I think the issue what I've been seeing about this is there's a lot of whataboutisms. And to be clear, I'm conservative. I don't want to see naked people on my timeline. I don't want to have the stuff that I have to look at and scroll through on the For You page of naked things. I don't want to see that. I am against all uh, the new kids and all of that. But what I see is a problem is when we have something which is, we can look at it and say it's bad, but then there's additional commentary to try to minimize what people see as kind of, an issue, which it is. And then there are attempts to normalize this in other parts of the country, not just in Seattle, but other places too. And that's seen with any parades, and I'm sure you'll find some videos of people sharing nasty videos as well. But it's just the whataboutism from What About the Florida nudist beaches. Like, I don't like those also, but it doesn't defeat the point of this being bad itself, and to try to, I guess, not say it's as big of a deal as many people I do and many people on the right think it is. uh it looks like it's normalizing. And I mean, we can look at definitions of normalizing, but I don't think we need to do that. I mean, when it gets to be lessen severity of something, we're trying to make it a bit more norm or pedestrian in nature by limiting or I guess hiding how extreme it
What?
really is. That is
Yeah, why?
that
Yeah, why? Eddie, stop. Yeah. Hold on, Ed, your mic is hot. I think that his phone is having issues. Didn't mean to cut you off. Hopefully he doesn't say anything embarrassing. Go ahead, Chief Trumpster.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like I saw your tweet, and I think most people. I mean, I'm not sure if everybody did, but I saw your tweet that said you didn't like the display. But my main issue was when you have a tweet like that, I don't like it, but then you follow up with, well, it's not really a big deal, or not won't have a long term impact to people. It's kind of, from what I'm seeing, looking at it from a conservative point of view, we're seeing a lot of this. These, I guess, displays and things similar to this across the country, and we are seeing this integrated in many areas, and specifically, kids are viewing more of this stuff. And I don't want to see naked stuff in my timeline. I don't. To be quite clear, I don't want to see that. I don't want kids to see it. I don't want them to see it in real life. And what we should be able to say, this is not right for children to see, and not try to say it won't impact them that long term. We can make that statement that it's bad and leave it at that, and not try to go and minimize what this push really
Yes.
is, I
So
guess.
like let me clarify like what happened there. So I made an initial tweet calling out libs of TikTok, and I explained this in the beginning. You weren't here. This was hours ago. I made an initial tweet calling out libs of TikTok for sharing the video uncensored, because there are kids on Twitter. There's thousands that actually follow libs of TikTok that are going to see this naked video. So I called them out for kind of a hypocrisy there. Now, there were several. I also made a tweet saying that I do not support parents bringing their kids to these events, and I don't condone it at all. Uh, Now, there's subsequent conversations I had, right? So there are several people that retweeted it with conversations, and I replied to probably 40 of them, maybe 35 of them last night. Now, one of them, the one that lives at TikTok, took was me replying to somebody else's post. So it was totally away from the actual post that I was trying to convey initially. Now, Libs of TikTok knew this, because in the thread there were posts of me saying that I don't condone this stuff. Yet they went out and said that I condone it, or I'm defending men on bikes naked, flashing their genitals to kids, which is the exact opposite of what I said. So that was my issue with it. It's I'm not, and I wasn't trying to deflect the issue by saying it's I don't think it's causing much harm if a kid attends a parade with their parent and sees a naked man on a bike. That's what I said. I was replying to somebody else that was saying something else. So I think that's important to note. I get why people see it as a single tweet and think, oh, I'm supporting it, but that's not what it was, and Libs of TikTok knew that's not what it was.
And I'm all over the TikTok or anything. I know people can construe things with, out of context tweets and things of that nature. But, I mean, when you see that response, I mean, you have, when you say before that it's shouldn't be allowed, or you don't want, I guess I'm not sure how to characterize what you said. You basically you didn't want to have it happen with kids around. Basically, that was your initial type of I guess pushback against that whole parade. But then you follow it up with things that try to, I guess, say it will impact them as long term, and then it has, I think there's a third response of it as well. Like that to me is kind of lessening the severity of it. And I know that, like, we have people in this amount of time who will take things out of context, but though when people try to, like, I guess, lessen the impact it has on society or on kids. Like, I think that, again, it is trying to normalize it in some way. You can be against it. You can say this is horrible, but then we add in the little, I'm against it, but there's that additional statement that kind of reduces the connotations it really has long term. And I do think there's been a lot of pushes for this for years. And I'm sure there'll continue to be even more as time goes on. And I just want to, again, just make it clear that we should not do whataboutisms and try to go and minimize what this is. This is a thing where we should all just point it and say it's bad and leave it at that, and not try to absolve, or not even absolve, but try to go and reduce any sort of connotations of what it's showing. It's not good, and kids shouldn't see it. We shouldn't see it. I should have to see it on my timeline. I don't like when people show naked stuff on my timeline. I don't want to see that on my feed. I don't think kids should see it on their feeds. If you're gonna share something, just blur the whole thing out, put a big like black box over everything, to be quite honest. But the bottom line is I just don't want people minimizing what this is. This is again a thing that kids shouldn't see. It's something that I believe is going to impact people very long term when you have more of this getting more and more advanced, or more more parent society and things like that. And we could call it for being bad. I'm not for nudist beaches either, so it's not like I can be mutually exclusive and say I'm for this but against that. I'm against all the nudity in public's parades and beaches or whatever. We just call this out for what it is. It's not good, and we should be able to leave it at that and not have that additional commentary to it, I guess.
No, I agree. I agree that I think that consistency is important, especially when you're talking about whether it's a video of them sharing or the actual event. I think that both are bad. I will say that I'm going to say it loud and clear. You shouldn't, in my mind, take your kids to events where there's public nudity. I wouldn't take my kids, and I think that if you have kids, you probably shouldn't either. Of course, if it's legal, then I have no control over what you do, though. I also don't support sharing a video of the same exact event when there's kids that are going to see it and kids follow your account. So, like,
Brian,
go ahead.
it was the post millennial who reported that, and so she was sharing the post millennials article and the thing from that. It's not like she took the video herself and put it up and whatever. I mean, she's retweeting a news
Yeah,
story
no,
that was
I agree, but it can be censored. You can put, like, I posted
okay,
the
but
picture.
I don't see you criticizing the post millennial doing the same thing. You just are targeting libs of TikTok.
I criticize them both. I just didn't make a tweet over it. I mean, like, I
Okay.
can't criticize everybody that posted the video. There's like literally I think there's 5,000, no, like 12,000 people reshared it or something like that.
Here's a question for you. Do you not see a trend with pride parades and pride events that are becoming overtly sexual and with lots of nudity everywhere? I mean, it just happened on the White House lawn, fondling breasts and all.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
do you condemn that?
so what happened in the White House lawn? Absolutely, I condemn that. I think it was ridiculous.
Because it's legal there too. It's legal to be nude
Right.
and or topless.
I don't think it should be, right? So just like in Seattle, I don't think it should be. Um, with that said, I don't know if this is something that's happening more or if it's something that social media is kind of uncovering more. So, like, did it happen just as much 10, 20 years ago, or is it more prominent on social media? I think that.
It
But
absolutely
those
was
two.
not happening 20 years ago.
But
Well,
even if
well,
it
well, no, no,
Absolutely
was,
was
hold on,
not.
hold on. So the
That's
exact,
actually not
wait,
true.
that is incorrect because the Seattle parade, which wasn't actually a gay pride parade, it was a. Wait,
Again, you can't go with the exception as the
wait, wait,
rule,
But
I,
I'm
Brian.
I'm
You
sorry,
got
sorry.
to
I have
be
to
So,
got to
stop
no,
you
be
hold on.
there.
honest
I
about
have to
that.
stop you there
Is anybody
because you
speaking
don't
who actually
know that.
attended a
In the
pride parade?
60s, a lot of people were walking around naked. In the 70s, a lot of people were walking around naked. The media wasn't what it is today to throw it in everybody's face on
Exactly.
everybody's phone. The fact is, I'm against it. I happen to be on the conservative side when it comes to this, but you can't say it absolutely wasn't happening then. We just don't have any evidence of it happening or not.
Let
right.
me finish my
Well,
point.
can I finish my point real quick, Brian?
Let me finish my point, and then you can chime in. So
Because I think you're going to go off track from what I was
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
ask you. Okay.
we can circle back to that because somebody said that it's not happening, and the topic was the Seattle parade, which wasn't a gay pride parade. It was actually a solstice event that people, gay, straight, women, men, they all participate. And this has been taking place, this nude bike ride, for 34 years. Same thing happens in Philadelphia. So it's not something new, that alone. But in general, I don't know the answer. I don't know if it's we're seeing more of it because social media is uncovering it more, or if it's actually a trend. I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, my point is that you're seeing, thanks to, or not thanks to social media, you're seeing lots of this over and over and over again. So we do know that it is happening, and it's happening quite often, and we can all agree we don't like it. Defended over